Just a quick legal disclaimer, I did receive this as a review sample with the only expectation that I do a video on it. And this is the SilverStone XE02-SP3S 2U heatsink for AMD sockets SP3, SP6, and TR4. And on the front, just have some basic product information, and then on the side, get into more detailed specs. Inside the packaging is some warranty information, a nice little piece of foam, and the heatsink itself. And when you open up the clamshell packaging this is in, just want to kind of grab by the little corner there and pull the top off. The bottom is attached to this plastic shell to protect the thermal compound, as it comes with a nice thin layer of thermal compound pre-applied. To remove the heatsink from the shell, you just kind of lift it up at an angle out of it. And depending on your motherboard, you may need to readjust the screw positions for either front to back or back to front cooling. In my case, the narrow side of the screw pattern goes towards the front of the case and the wide side goes to the back. But if I wanted to change this from back to front cooling instead of front to back, all I have to do is there's these little spacers here that you lift up on and then slide the screws into a different position, like so. There's some little detents that those spacers sit into to kind of lock them into place. And in this configuration, the fan would actually go towards the back of the case, towards the I/O shield, and it'd push air in through the back of the case towards the front. But in my particular build, I'm doing front to back cooling, and with my H12 SSL-I motherboard, the narrower screw pattern goes towards the front and the wide screw pattern goes towards the back. This heatsink does use Torx 20 screws, so you will need the correct screwdriver bit to tie it, to screw it down. But otherwise, yeah, the build of it's pretty standard. Got your aluminum cold plate heat pipes that are copper and aluminum fins, and yeah, otherwise pretty standard looking nice heatsink. Installing this heatsink, there's a couple of things you want to be mindful of. First, you want to make sure that you have the CPU properly installed. If you don't have those screws torqued down to the correct spec, you're going to have issues where you're either not going to see memory, you're not going to post, or PCI Express slots aren't going to work. And in my case, I'm just using the AMD Ryzen Threadripper Torx screwdriver, but there are EPYC branded ones too. It's the same one way or another, and you just want to make sure you screw those down in the correct order as specified by documentation. And basically the reasoning is there's like 4,000 some odd pins on this CPU, and if they're not seated correctly, then your system's not going to work correctly. Now I already have the heatsink in the configuration I need it to be in for my cooling design, because the fan blows air through the heatsink. And I might just unwind this cable here briefly, and I'm going to place it down on the screws, the points that it screws down to. Now you will need a Torx 20 screwdriver bit, and I don't remember what the official documentation says, but if I remember correctly, you basically go on a kind of a diagonal pattern, kind of like you would with tires. You kind of skip around. There is an official Torx spec for the screwdriver screw when you're screwing in the screws for the heatsink, but I didn't follow it when I was testing this previously. I just kind of went around and got everything nice and snug. Don't like really crank down on it, force it, because you don't want to damage your motherboard, but kind of get a feel for it. You know, don't take your 3/4 inch impact driver for semi trucks and torque it down to 100 foot-pounds or something insane. But basically the goal is to get even pressure. In theory, the retention mechanism on the CPU itself should ensure the correct pressure. So yeah, just that simple, and then, you know, route your cable to your fan header down here. And there we go. You'll be good to go. So noise-wise, the fan on the heatsink is pretty typical for a 2U server heatsink. It is actually pretty quiet right now, considering I have it under a heavy load. But you can definitely tell this fan is spinning over these because it has more of a higher pitch noise to it. It's also part of just the fact that it's a smaller fan, because these 80mm fans have more of a droning sound to them. But all things considered, I have been running Cinebench now for almost 4 minutes, and it's slowly creeping up. It was hanging at 50C, now it's up to 51. Yeah, it's back down. It's kind of hovering around 50C at max load with this EPYC 7282. So performance-wise, it seems to be doing pretty good. But I think the next thing to do is a proper benchmark to see how this stacks up to the A26 that it replaced. So I wanted to give a little bit of an explanation of how I'm running these benchmarks before I show the results. And I've chosen to do this in my warehouse because it's a large thermal mass and the server is not going to be able to influence the temperature of the room, unlike a medium to small room. And the warehouse is at 55 Fahrenheit, which is roughly 12.8 degrees Celsius. And before running the benchmarks and logging the temperatures, I did run a round of cinebench just to preheat the server, and the results were pretty surprising. So there's a little bit of an oddity in the graph. My goal was to start the benchmark with the heatsink at the same temperature, rather than doing what I should have and just let it hit its baseline temperature and then start the test. So you'll see a bit of a peak at the beginning of the SilverStone graph, and then it drops down sharply. It was basically trying to get down to its stable temperature, but I tried to start Cinebench around the 35C area because I wanted it to be at the same temperature I started the Dynatron at. Also, for some strange reason, the Dynatron Cinebench test ran for 20 seconds longer than the SilverStone. I don't really know what's going on there, but I was looking through the logs and the CPU was pulling its 110 watts, so just must have been a weird software glitch. And yeah, I was pretty surprised. I was not expecting the SilverStone to perform that much better than the Dynatron. It is possible that my Dynatron has failed because there was corrosion on it where the fins meet the cold plate, but to be honest, I don't feel like when I initially got the Dynatron versus now, its performance characteristics have changed that much, because the Dynatron's always seemed like it likes to hold a bit of heat into it, and it's kind of weird. It'll like get like to almost like a saturation point, and it'll just kind of hang out there, and that's like a saturation point relative to ambient temperature. And obviously with loads, it's gonna peak and then, you know, eventually cool down. But yeah, it's pretty crazy. So the Dynatron was hanging around 58C on average, running Cinebench for the 10-minute test, and the SilverStone was basically around 47. Some observations I noticed was you could really feel the Dynatron cranking out the heat. The air was very warm. But the SilverStone, it was just kind of like, yeah, I guess the air is warm, but it didn't feel as obvious. But at the same time, I mean, it wasn't getting as hot, so that's part of what was going on there. And the hotter the CPU gets, the faster the fan runs. But yeah, it kind of blew me away. I was just like, how is this performing that much better? But the numbers don't lie, and when I was doing the testing without the logging, I was seeing pretty much the same results. So I thought I'd compare the specs of these heat sinks since I did thermal performance. And the Dynatron and the SilverStone both are basically compatible with the same sockets. The Dynatron only weighs 450 grams compared to the 565 grams of the SilverStone. I suspect that's because the SilverStone has a denser fin stack than the Dynatron does. The fans are basically comparable in RPM, but the life expectancy of the SilverStone is a lot higher than the Dynatron. And the SilverStone is rated for a higher air pressure of 21.08 millimeters H2O versus the 1904 of the Dynatron. And when it comes to the TDP, I emailed my contact at SilverStone to ask about that. And even though the SilverStone is only officially rated for 180 watts TDP, that doesn't mean it can't handle more. It's just more of a conservative, play it safe kind of rating. And when it comes to pricing, as of filming, the Dynatron is $42.95 and the SilverStone is $76.04. Now, the SilverStone is, higher in price, being almost $35 more. But when you think about it from an operation and longevity standpoint, I would say it's worth it because it's in theory rated to last twice as long as the Dynatron, and on top of that it performs 10 degrees Celsius better. So if you want the higher performance and higher lifespan, it's definitely worth spending the extra money for the SilverStone, and especially if you're going to be running like 24/7 or heavy loads. I'm really impressed. I was not expecting there to be such a big performance difference. Like 10C doesn't sound like a lot, but when you're talking 58 versus 47, I mean technically it's 11C. But when you're talking 58 versus 47, that's a pretty big jump in degrees of Celsius. So yeah, I'm pretty impressed. I'm kind of regretting not trying to get myself the SilverStone heatsink in the get-go, especially because I was not expecting the Dynatron to fail like it did. I didn't really show it, I guess, much in the video, and we'll see if it'll tell on camera, but basically the fins where they started, or where they're attached to the base, they started corroding, which is bizarre. I've never seen that happen to a heatsink before, at least not one that hasn't been underwater. But I guess it's for the best because now I have a better heatsink that performs better, and yeah, I know better next time to go with the good stuff and get a SilverStone. So hopefully that's interesting, and thanks for watching.